listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I am your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me, as always, is Beaver Blitz beat writer, reporter extraordinaire, Jake Hedberg. Jake, it's been a busy couple weeks. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Angie. What about
Awesome.
yourself?
I am good. We made it through 2 signing days, a coaching change, a bowl game, a whole new coaching staff. It's been a little crazy, but we have a great show lined up today. Really 2 big things. We want to talk about that 2024 class that was finally solidified yesterday on signing day. Jake and I spoke to Coach Bray here on the podcast as a kind of a one-off yesterday. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check out our YouTube channel because the entire interview is there. So we want to talk about that, kind of what we think about this class, maybe some people to watch as we head into spring camp and fall camp. And then all focus really turns to baseball. The Beaver baseball team kicks off the season next week in Surprise. And this is a top 10 team, a unanimous top 10 team and picked to win the Pac-12. So Jake has a great rundown for us there. But I think before we get into anything, Jake, let's jump right into football and the new players, because I think this is an entire, I would say it's about a quarter of a new roster that Beaver fans are going to need to learn some new faces. So already on campus, two true freshmen in Jordan Anderson, wide receiver, Exodus Ayers, cornerback. Then we have this whole slew of transfers, 16 additional, plus a couple walk-ons. I'm going to keep it just to those transfers that are on scholarship. Nothing against the other guys, but we need to just focus right now because there are so many. 18 new faces on campus working out. Trent Bray said yesterday they've been assimilating really well with the current team and been working really hard. Let's just go down the list, Jake. Give me, out of this list, we don't need to go through every single player, but give me a guy or two that from the guys that are in right now that you are so excited to see come spring camp.
Yeah, first of all, we have to start off with the quarterbacks, Giovanni McCoy and Jabari Johnson. Jabari Johnson's a former 4-star recruit committed to Missouri out of high school, redshirted there this past season and is now on campus. And then Giovanni McCoy is a 2-year starter for the Idaho Vandals, proven player, experience, has won a ton of games. And those two with Ben Gulbranson figure to be battling it out for the starting job. Really excited for spring ball in a month to, see both these guys throw live in person. Still haven't gotten the chance to see them throw live yet. Really excited for that. And then 2 other guys, Darius Clemens, a transfer from Michigan, another former 4-star, big body, 6'3", 215-pound receiver who will go up and get the ball, which is something Oregon State has really sorely lacked ever since Isaiah Hodgins left. And Trent Bray said yesterday that Oregon State is looking to build around these bigger receivers. No knack on Anthony Gould or Silas Bolden or Trayshawn Harrison or Tyjon Lindsey, but they weren't necessarily jump ball guys. They're all of them were like 6 feet tall or shorter. Now Oregon State's bigger at the receiver spot, and they still have those smaller guys too. With Zach Card, Taz Reddix, and then on the defensive side of the ball, Kobe Singleton is a guy I'm really excited to see. Has 10 career interceptions, 7 of them were at Liberty, 3 at Southern Utah. He's a guy who's most likely going to come in and start day 1 at corner opposite Jaden Robinson, and he's a guy who's going to play in the NFL. Really talented corner. Really excited to watch those 4 players in spring camp here.
Yeah, spring camp's going to be interesting because it's going to be different. Coach Bray did tell us yesterday he plans to go more live. But I wanted that question because with a new staff, you don't know. Most of the staffs in the past have used spring as a time to really work on fundamentals. And Trent says it's more fun to go live and then stop it, correct what needs to be fixed because they'll start getting that muscle memory from actually taking live snaps. So I think that'll make it more fun. Yeah. What about D-line? I know that's something that Beaver fans are always looking to improve. What do you think of like a D lineman, Tyjee Hill from LSU, Nick Norris from Northern Colorado. There's some guys there that
Yeah.
might make an impact.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line spots is really wide open. Oregon State, they lose their top 4 linemen with Joe Golden, James Rawls, Sione Elohea, and Isaac Hodgins as well. And the guys they have returning, there's not a whole lot of experience. They have Samisis Haluni, Quincy Wright, a guy I really like in Takari Hickle. And
I was going to say Takari Hickle.
My guy. I love Takari Hickle. It's a breakout player to watch in 2024. And then 2 talented redshirt freshmen in Thomas Collins and Kelsey Howard. But they need depth and guys to come in and compete with them. And that's exactly what Trent Bray and Keith Hayward did. You know, Taiji Hill, former 4-star, played at one of the best college programs in the country. He's a big body. He's going to come in and compete immediately. Nick Norris, kind of a tweener, not sure if they're going to bulk him up and play him inside or slim him down and play, the Chatfield, John McCartan type role. And then Tavita Poamea is another guy I'm really excited about. Oregon State was high on him coming out of high school, went to Oregon, redshirted, and now he came up by 5 half an hour, and now he's at Oregon State. So really excited to see that group. I think out of all the groups, it'll probably have the most competition because there's really not a standout experience option. And there could be guys that we haven't even mentioned yet get playing time there, like, a JoJo Johnson or a Jacob Schuster. So excited to see them.
There's a lot of new faces that we haven't seen. Do you think Nick Norris, do you see him? I mean, another Northern Colorado guy, but do you see him maybe being a Joel Golden type position?
I see him. I'm not Trent Bray. Obviously, I'm not Keith Hayward. I'm not a coach, but I see him personally as playing the same role as Takari Hickle does.
Okay,
kind of the rush end that Chatfield, Sione, John McCartan played over the past couple seasons, and he does kind of have the frame for that. He's 6'5", 265. I think he's going to either put on weight or drop weight. And once the coaching staff figures out what they want to do with him, I think he will be an impact player.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I noticed when I go through this whole list of transfers is just the size, whether it's length, its size, especially O-line, D-line. Let's just go through then. We've talked about some wide receiver. We've talked about quarterbacks. Running backs picked up Anthony Hankerson and Jam Griffin, another from a familiar name. Obviously, Jam, I think we see him obviously fitting back in a spot. Where do you see Anthony Hankerson in this mix? I see Hankerson as more of a third down back, as a pass catching back, kind of taking over the Trey Lowe type role from 2021. He showed a pass catching ability at Colorado that the Oregon State backs haven't really shown yet. It's something that they need to improve on. And he's also a smaller guy too. I mean, if you look at Jam, he's 5'9", but he's like 215. Yeah. And then Isaiah and Dame are both 6'1", 235 pounds. Hankerson's only 5'9", $190. So he does fit the Trey Lowe scat back type mold that Oregon State used in 2021, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that role for Hankerson here in 2024. Let's talk some linebackers, because Oregon State did, and I'm gonna combine the linebackers and edge rushers together here. So guys on campus right now, you have Aiden Sullivan, came in from Butte College, DJ Westlock, an edge rusher from Missouri, and we had another edge, I believe. Jairus Goodman. Oh yeah, Jairus Goodman. Yeah, so DJ Westlock is going to be an edge rusher, and that's a spot that's wide open as well. John McCartan's gone, Chatfield's gone, Stover's undecided, but it doesn't appear like he's going to be back. And then Ryan Frankie is also now gone as well. But Oregon State does have guys like Nico Taylor and Oluomatoshu who have proven they can rush the passer at a smaller level. They both saw times on special teams this past season, and they're going to be in line for a bigger role in 2024. But DJ Westlock, the kid is very talented. I mean, coming out of high school, he had 50 scholarship offers from just about every blue blood school you could think of, the Georgias, the Michigans, Tennessee, Texas, all those programs. And he went to Missouri, didn't really play a whole ton his first 2 years,
and I think he has a chance to really break out at Oregon State. He's one of the guys I'm most excited to watch in 2024. And then the inside backers, Aiden Sullivan and Jairus Goodman, I love their film. They're both guys that really fit Trent Bray's scheme, their system. And, talking to players, it's not a foregone conclusion that Isaiah Chisholm and Melvin Jordan are going to start. These two JUCO guys are going to push them to start. They're very talented, very strong, quick, agile, and I think both of them have very high chances to be day one competitors.
Yeah, and I did have a chance to sit down with Coach Hayward yesterday for a quick phone interview before they headed up to Portland for the recruiting dinner. And, one thing that he talked about too is just attack. I mean, that was one, they're going to continue that attacking defense that Coach Bray has kind of instilled. DBs was a big one for this transfer class. You have Mason White out of TCU, and who actually Oregon State won it last year. He chose TCU, and now he's back now at Oregon State. We've already talked about Kobe Singleton, which you see as a day one starter.
Yeah.
Amarian York, which he was kind of an early pickup, but now I can almost see him kind of being buried a little bit by what's already on the roster and some of the other guys they picked up. And am I missing anybody? Oh, Jaheim Patterson from Kilgore, Texas.
And then Saiv Hadrali.
Saiv Vadrali.
Yeah.
I'm probably totally butchering that. We will learn that.
But I think it's a very deep defensive hat class. Singleton and White and Hadrali, I believe they're all view as corners. Singleton, I obviously see as a day one starter opposite Jaden Robinson, and I think both White and Hadrali, they'll compete for the depth time with guys like Andre Jordan, Joe Swen. I could see Hadrali potentially playing nickel, competing with
I was going to say that
Thomas too at that spot. White and Hadrali don't have a lot of Division I game experience, so spring camp will be interesting to see them compete against guys at the Division I level. And then York and Patterson are both safeties, and Jaheim Patterson is really a very intriguing player to me. You don't see many 6'5" safeties. And I mean, if you look at it, Oregon State, their safeties are big. Skylar Thomas, 6'2", 210. Tyrese Ivey, 6'3", 205. And then you got Jaheim, 6'4", 6'5", 210. Length is something that appears to be what Coach Perkins and Coach Hayward want in the back end, which is kind of new because Katana and Achille, they weren't very tall. But now Oregon State's got some big guys back there.
Yeah, like I said, it's across the board. They're getting bigger, and that is something that kind of stood out. And then the last guy I want to talk about that's on campus right now, there is another O-lineman coming from Colorado in Gerard Christian Lichtenhan. I think that's right. But he is trying to graduate from Colorado this term and will be in after spring. But Van Wells, center from Colorado, transferred in. He was one of the very first transfers. Do you see him as a day one starter?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Van Wells, he's an experienced guy. He started 19, 20 games at Colorado as a center, and he's a fantastic pass blocker. Colorado's offensive line did have struggles last year, but if you watch the game film and the PFF numbers, Van Wells was the best pass blocker on that team, and it wasn't even close. I think Wells' pass blocking grade might have been higher than Jake Levengood's. He's a stout guy, 6'2", 290. He's a little bit smaller than Jake was. But another thing, he has experience in Kyle DeVan's system, which no other lineman that will be there in spring camp has. So I feel like that's something that can't be overlooked.
Especially at center.
Yeah, and there's talent in the rest of that offensive line room too, like going beyond the starters. Dylan Lopez and Vincic, they're both guys that can snap as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wells is probably going to be the starter, but don't count out Lopez or Vincic either.
Yeah. There are some young guys that we have.
Grant as well. Yeah.
Grant Stark. And then you have, just looking across the board, great news that Joshua Gray's coming back. That's huge. But then you look at some of Tyler Moreno. There's a whole Jacob Strand. Yeah, there's some guys there that I think it's
Jacob
wide
Anderson.
open. Yeah, there's a lot of new names. Again, these guys have been with the program, but they're going to be new names to Beaver fans that maybe haven't been following things as closely as we have. So we're going to go over quickly the signees, just kind of run through them. So offensive line, Adam Hawks, wide receiver, Malachi Durant. That was a big one who signed yesterday. Offensive lineman, Dylan Sikorsky, linebacker, Dexter Foster, 2 running backs in this class, prep running backs, Salahadin Allah out of Texas and Cornell Hatcher out of Southern California. Wide receiver, Eddie Fruoff, Shamar Michael or Mikely out of he's an edge rusher out of Florida. Will Haverland, an edge rusher out of Eugene. The prep quarterback, Kalen Guttridge out of Wilsonville. And then the last signee was from yesterday, Jaden Tuia, an O-lineman out of Idaho. So those are the signees who will be here for summer conditioning. So overall, taking in this whole body of work, Jake, who are the guys that you are super excited to see come maybe this summer?
All 3 of the receivers, they really stand out. Jordan Anderson and Durant, they were both borderline 4-star guys who I think could compete for playing time this year.
And then Darius Clemens.
Yeah, well, Clemens as well.
Oh, and Eddie.
Yeah, Freeoff, 6'4", 210, can't teach that size.
Yeah,
really raw player. I think if you give him a season or 2 of weight room and development, he really could turn into a special player. Excited about that. And then another guy I'm really excited about is Exodus Ayers. He might not necessarily play this season just due to the depth in the cornerback room, but he is a talented kid. He had some SEC offers come in late in the process, stuck with Oregon State. Really excited to watch him play in spring camp here.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about the two of the Oregon kids, Eddie Freeoff and Dexter Foster. I just feel that both of those guys, they might not be immediate impact guys this season or next, but they are both so raw and so athletic. I'm excited to see those guys. The running backs too are intriguing. Yeah. Really under the radar.
Yeah.
But a lot of talent there.
I mean,
a lot of productivity.
If you ask me in 3 years which group is the best, I think it may end up being this running back group. Obviously, with how stacked the Oregon State back room is this year, they won't see any time. But Hatcher and Alla are both going to be studs. You know, they're both under-recruited guys, but they both produced. I mean,
didn't Hatcher have like 54 touchdowns this year?
Yeah, and he played in the best division. He had over 2,000 yards. I believe it was 42 touchdowns playing in the CIF, which if you don't really follow high school football, that's the same conference as St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, all these big name programs, and he just dominated. I think he had 5 scores against St. John Bosco, which is one of the best high school teams in the country. Really excited about him. I think he could be a special one. His film reminds me of Jamar Jefferson almost, just the way.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Not saying he will be Jamar necessarily, but really excited to see him in 2025, 2026 and see what he can do.
We had a comment here in the chat. Squeak E Clean says, "I'm stoked for our receiver class this year." Yeah, it's like I said, this offense is going to be different. And when I talked with Coach Gunderson a week ago, it's caused this big discussion in the lodge that we are moving away. Oregon State's going to be moving away from that traditional pro style set to more up tempo. Change of pace though. Gundy did make sure to say no, they're not going to go up tempo all the time. It's going to be slow things down, speed things up. They want to keep defenses on the heels, but. No, I think those are some good choices. Somebody asked today about Jaden Tuia, one of the brand new O-linemen. He kind of emerged here in January. This is a guy, he came into his Oregon State trip and measured 6'4", 285. So that's, better than his profile. And he had a 79-inch wingspan. So those are the kind of things that, you can't teach. And he developed late. I mean, he was a total late bloomer, grew a couple inches there that last year. So that's going to be an interesting one too. So who may be the best overall addition or a few guys for immediate help this year?
For immediate impact, I think Jordan Anderson and Malachi Durant. I think both those guys are going to push for immediate time. Jordan Anderson's already got a head start. He's on campus now. He's going through, team training. And then Durant is a talented kid. He's I think he might be the best signee at the moment,
Okay.
just in terms of just pure talent. Really excited to see him. Just really excited to see him play in the spring or the fall.
How about of the transfer guys? Who do you think might be the biggest impact guy right now?
I mean, taking away the quarterbacks, because obviously it's going to be one of them. Darius Clemens and Kobe Singleton and Westlock are the three that come to mind.
Okay. Yeah, Westlock's going to be an interesting one. I think that could pay a lot of dividends there.
Yeah.
And Giovanni McCoy, I think, I don't know. That's who I have penciled in as kind of taking the reins.
That's my early favorite.
Okay, so who may be the hidden gem out of this whole group of guys?
Yeah, I got 3 guys, and we've already talked about them. 4, I guess.
Okay.
Dexter Foster, Eddie Freoff, Salah Allah, and Cornell Hatcher. If I had to choose one, I think Dexter Foster is a guy who could really pop, especially playing in Trent Bray's system. Really,
he was handpicked by Trent too.
Yeah,
Trent saw him at camp and offered him on the spot. So that's a big vouch right there.
If Trent's shown one thing during his time at Oregon State, it's been the ability to develop really good inside linebackers, and I think Dexter Foster could be next in line.
This one's not on the list, but talk to me a little bit about the recruiting efforts of this new staff. What are your thoughts on what they did?
I think they're being very aggressive. I also think they're looking a little more in-state, which hasn't necessarily been something that Jonathan Smith did. We have 3 signees from the state of Oregon on scholarship, which is more than I can remember being in a season. But just the aggressiveness, and I think that is what you get. Hiring someone like Thomas Ford and AJ Cooper, like younger, aggressive guys that relate to players and can go and get them. If you look at Ford got Hatcher and Alla, and I think it was like a week or 2. And Cooper's already, for the class of 2025, he's already paying off with Jeremiah Iowana. It's really promising to see the aggressiveness, because I feel like that's been something that the previous coaching staff lacked.
Yeah, and we have some, there could be some surprises here in the next, several weeks. The staff is really, they're relating to guys, and I feel that they do have something to sell in that, they've been here. Actually, most of them have actually coached at Oregon State or played here. So we have a question here. JRU1 says, do you think if McCoy wins the job, we see Jabari get a series each game like Childs did?
I don't think so, to be honest.
Either.
I think Trent's philosophy and Gundy's is different than Jonathan's and Lindgren was. And there may have been something else at play with the Childs thing. It's kind of my It's kind of my
hindsight now is looking a little. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, Mel Tucker got fired 2 days before the Utah game. That was the first Childs drive. I don't know. Just I don't know if it's just a coincidence.
Tinfoil hats on.
I don't know.
There's a lot, and I do think they were trying to get him some reps, but also potentially, keep him happy and Okay. Anything else? So I know we're gonna do this with Beaver Blitz, but you had to pick a recruiter of the year. Who are you going with?
Honestly, Coach Fentz did a really good job, I thought. He got in there with Jordan.
I did not expect that one, even though I put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy to say Trent Bray just because of how he's done, but going against the grain, I thought Coach Fentz really locked down Jordan Anderson. He locked down Freoff, and then Durant was a combination of Fentz and Thomas Ford towards the end. I feel like if you look at Coach Fentz hasn't necessarily gotten the credit he's deserved recruiting-wise, but if you look at the last 2 classes that receiver Oregon State signed between the 3 they brought in this year, and then Zach Card, David Wells, Taz Reddix, and Hatton, those guys, all 7 of those guys could be contributors. 6 of the 7 could this next year. And the players love Coach Fentz as well. Every receiver I've talked to raves about him. So props to Coach Fentz. I thought he did a great job.
Okay. Look, I thought you'd go like Ford or Cooper or like Bray. Go with Bray.
Yeah.
But Okay, that Coach Fence. So hats off to Coach Fence, Recruiter of the Year in Jake's mind. Okay, we're going to take a quick break just for an ad side on the podcast side. And then we're going to come back, change gears, and start talking baseball because this Beaver baseball team is ready to make some noise. If you're not a member of Beaver Blitz, now is a great time to be with us as we start the baseball coverage. You will not want to miss JP's weekly walk-off, as well as we jump into spring football coverage that will take you through March and April. Sign up at beaverblitz.com today. Okay, welcome back to the damn podcast. Jake and I now are switching gears from football, and it's time to talk some Beaver baseball. Coach Canham and the crew are unanimous top 10 ranking across the board in all of the publications, and they were picked to win the Pac-12 just yesterday, I do believe. So, Jake, you have put together a big preview. I know JP's working on you put together an early look at the roster. JP's working on a preview. Let's just start with some talk about the infield. We're gonna go kind of group by group. I want to hear kind of your thoughts, players to watch, and then we're going to talk some strengths, weaknesses, and thoughts on the season. So infield, who do you got as kind of your starting group there?
Yeah, so the catcher spot, I think it'll be the same as last year. You'll predominantly see Tanner Smith, who has been showing improved power, and then Wilson Weber will also platoon in just like last year. He's a guy who apparently has been lighting it up. You could see him in the lineup on days where he's not catching, and then at first base, Mason Guerra is a guy who was just chosen to first team preseason All Pac-12. Big power bat. Played third base and left field and DH in years past, but has played first base in high school. Should be a middle of the order big bat. Second baseman, the heart and soul of this team, and honestly, the guy who was a chance to be the number 1 draft pick, Travis Pizzana. Really a very special player. One of my all-time favorites to watch. He's a guy he's going to contend to hit 400, 10-plus home runs and swipe 40-plus bags. He could be the Golden Spikes player of the year. At shortstop, Elijah Hainline, a transfer from Washington State. He hit 337 with 12 home runs last year for the Cougars, and I think he could be in for a big year. And then third baseman, a guy I'm really excited to see is Trent Caraway, a true freshman from Dana Point, California. He's a kid that has a big arm, big bat. Everyone on the team raves about him. He could be a special one. He was, for those of you who kind of followed last year, he's a Gavin Turley type prospect. He's a guy who came in, was a borderline day 1, day 2 MLB draft pick, didn't get the money he wanted, so decided to come to college, and he should be a day 1 starter. Really excited to see what Trent Caraway brings to the table.
Yeah, so a slightly different look. I mean, I think, like you said, though, the heart and soul of this roster is Travis Pizzana. And yeah, that guy brings some swag with him too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some ultimate confidence going there.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
first round draft pick. I mean, you think he could, or a first number 1 pick? Do you think he could be another Adley?
Yeah, I mean, he's. I've seen a bunch of drafts with, and he's top 5, top 10, and I think with how special of a season Oregon State could potentially put together, I think he could see his name rise from 5 to 10 up to the top 3.
Outfield. Tell me about the outfielders.
Yeah, I mean, this group is loaded, and it'll be the same as last year. Gavin Turley in left, Micah McDowell in center, and Brady Casper in right. All 3 of those guys had 10 or Casper and Turley had 10 or more homers last year. McDowell had 7 or 8. But all 3 of these guys are going to bat over 300. Casper is a guy who players have really been raving about. They're saying he could be in for a big year, and I mean, this team is just loaded. Casper, McDowell, and Turley, I do not think you'll find a better outfield trio in the country, at least on the West Coast. Very excited to see what they can do in surprise here pretty shortly.
Yeah, so if there was any question marks about this team, it's going to be pitching.
Yeah.
Give me if you had to pick, your Friday, Saturday, Sunday starters, who do you have, and do you have any concerns with this group?
Yeah, so starting pitching is it's a little nerve-wracking as Oregon State really they don't have a Cooper Jerpy or a Luke Heimlich, at least they don't appear to. The Friday guy, however, it appears to will be Aiden May, a transfer from Arizona.
Okay.
He struck out 9 Beavers at Goss last year, and all the players have said he has been giving them fits, and if he's giving Oregon State's batters fits, I can't really imagine what he'll be doing to not as good teams. Really excited to see him. Saturday, Jacob Kamatz, I think, is back in that role for the 3rd straight season. Kamatz is kind of a guy that reminds me of Bryce Hemmel, for fans that remember him. Just a very consistent pitcher. He's not a big strikeout guy. He just gets outs. He's very consistent. And then Sunday, Jaron Hunter, if he's healthy, it sounds like he is. He's a guy who I thought at times was Oregon State's best pitcher last year until he messed up his arm. Really excited to see a fully healthy Jaron Hunter in 2024. And I think there's a handful of guys that can compete with them. Nelson Keljo is a lefty from Jesuit, a sophomore, pushes 96. Aiden Jimenez had a great summer on the Cape Cod. I think he could step in and fill a role. And then a true freshman, Eric Higuera. Coach Dorman's been raving about him. Excited to see what he can potentially do.
So offensively, how does this team stack up?
I think this has a chance to be the best offense Oregon State's ever seen. Quite frankly, I think.
I mean, you mentioned a bunch of big bats there when you were talking about
this offense is loaded. If you look at the weak spots from last year's team, it was shortstop, and now they have Elijah Hainline, who's a proven 337 hitter with 10-plus home runs.
Starnetti transferred to Michigan, right?
Yes, he's at Michigan, who Oregon State plays in 3 weeks. And then the catching spot at times was kind of weaker last year, but Tanner Smith and Weber have both been raking in camp. I think you'll see both of them in the lineup at times as catcher and DH. Really excited about them. And then the DH spot last year was questionable at times, but Oregon State's got a handful of guys. Smith and Weber, Tice Peterson hit 303 as a freshman last year. A guy I'm really excited about is Jacob Craig. He's huge, 6'5", 240. He's a guy who I think once he gets into a starting role, I think he'll be a 10-plus home run guy. Dallas Macias as well. This offense is just loaded. Don't be shocked at all if Oregon State as a team hits over 100 home runs in 2024.
100 home runs. Okay, should we put this down as
that's my bold prediction?
Okay, that's a bold prediction. So strengths.
I think they reach it easily too. To be honest,
100 home runs. Okay, I'm gonna write this down. And we're gonna have Jake's home run countdown here. So okay, I'm not hearing many weaknesses right now. What if you had a weakness? What would the weakness be on this team?
I think
the unknown.
I think the unknown is starting pitching, just because it wasn't necessarily great last year, and Aiden May is kind of an unknown, just because we haven't seen him throw at Goss consistently. And Kamatz and Hunter, they both had issues with their arms last year. They both appear to be fully healthy, but with pitchers, it's always a dangerous game. So I'm a little nervous about our starting pitching. I do think the bullpen, however, is going to be fantastic. Really excited about that with a couple transfers, Kyle Scott, Bridger Holmes, and then guys that come back with Keljo, Jimenez, AJ Hutcherson, Tyler Mejia, and then a couple freshmen and Drew Talibs and Leif Palmer as well. Really excited about what that bullpen brings to the table.
So, I mean, obviously defense is going to be a strength. Offense is going to be a strength. What if you had to pick one thing that this team is going to be built around? What's it going to be? I think
this team is going to ride or die by their starting pitching. I think this team is going to breeze through Pac-12 play just with the sheer talent of their offense. But it's going to be once you get to the super regionals, or if you get to Omaha, how's the pitching going to hold up against the Arkansas, the LSUs, the Floridas, the Wake Forest is, and that's why I'm really excited to watch this tournament in Texas. The second week of the season, Oregon State's playing Texas Tech. They're playing Arkansas, Michigan, Oklahoma State. I mean, 3 of those are top 25 teams. So it's going to be an early test, and I think it'll show what May, Kamatz, Hunter, and whoever else that fourth starter is. I think it'll show what they're made of and what they'll need to improve on throughout conference play to get ready for what could be a magical postseason run.
Okay, you got me excited. Beavs kick off the season next Friday, a week from Friday, or a week from tomorrow. So the 16th?
Yep, Friday the 16th.
February 16th, down in Surprise, Arizona.
At 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m. They have games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I believe they're all at 11. Maybe there's a 9 in there.
I think one of them's at 12, I believe.
Okay. Beaver Blitz, Jake has school, unfortunately.
I don't have class on Friday or Monday. So I will be providing coverage.
He will be providing coverage.
And I will
I'm also
Beaver baseball.
So yes, so Jake he's already asked me, can I get Flow Sports? Actually, he didn't ask me. He said, I already got Flow Sports to cover. And I'm like, don't worry, I got you covered. I'm also going to see my son who goes to Grand Canyon actually told me he could zip over to Surprise and maybe get a post-game interview for us on Saturday or Sunday. So I might put him to work as well just to see what the guys are saying. It should be a fun season, but 100 home runs, Jake. We're going to have Jake's home run. Like I'm going to put a little, like the K's, we're going to have Jake's home run. We have some questions. We don't have a ton of mailbag questions here, but a few. So we're going to transition to some mailbag, and then I'll get you out of here because I know it's a lunchtime pod.
Class later.
I know Jake has class later. I'm actually flying to Arizona to see said son down in Phoenix and check out that Waste Management Phoenix Open. I've never been, so we're going to go check that out tomorrow. My other poor son gets to stay home and go to school, which is super fun for him. Okay, so Matt Chiaffoni says it's December 2025. What is your best guess as to what conference alignment looks like for OSU?
That's a tough question just because there's so many unknowns.
I know there's so many unknowns.
I'm still holding out that Oregon State and Washington State will get picked up by the Big 12. Another factor is just because I don't think the whole realignment's done. I think the ACC is kind of on their last legs. I think it's a matter of time before you see FSU and Clemson down in either the SEC or up in the Big 10. Same with like Carolina, Louisville, Miami, those bigger programs in the ACC. Because, the way it appears to be heading based off recent occurrings is the SEC and the Big 10 are going to kind of separate. And then from there, I think you'll see the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-2 kind of scramble. And I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of end up with a super conference between the Big 12, the ACC, the Big 12, the remaining ACC schools, and the Pac-2. That's kind of my hope, but there's just so many unknowns. That's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, and then there's also the talk of maybe creating kind of a three-prong, somehow keeping the Pac-12 name, realigning some teams over there, Big 12, ACC. So you have a three auto bids versus the two. I don't know. There's a lot going on. And I think, obviously it's moving toward the SEC and Big 10 wanting to split away. So I would just love it for somehow college football to come back for the rest of the world who is not the Big 10. And
in my opinion, it's just a damn shame. If you look at the run TCU had last year, you're not going to have that anymore. If you look at, just all these great players like Robert Griffin III on Baylor, you aren't going to get a chance to see him play at a higher stage. Or I don't know. It's just very, very disappointing to see the game that so many people love be affected in such a negative way.
Well, I think it will happen though. I just see the Big 10 SEC trying to be this NFL minor league.
Yeah.
So let them do their thing, but then, let the rest of college football be college football.
Yeah. And in my opinion, this all started with the transfer portal and unregulated NIL, and it's just gotten worse. And the way the NCAA has handled this, which is kind of typical. But
Yeah.
not going to get into that.
But we can take away Reggie Bush's Heisman. Don't get me started.
Yeah. I mean, you could take away the Heisman, but it's fine for teams to tamper with players. It's fine for players to get paid millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And just,
It's interesting. So I haven't written up the Keith Hayward interview, but one of the things we talked about was recruiting and NIL and transfer portal and kind of the whole recruiting element. And, I asked him, I said, do you see that the parity is going away, that the parity that 85 scholarships was supposed to bring, now you have programs that are just paying walk-ons.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, and that's happening.
It's happening. It happened with Attica Stappington. I mean, Oregon's paying the kickers, but you know what? He brought up a good point. He said at the end of the day, though, these kids, if they're not playing,
it's no development.
So they're not getting development. They're not getting filmed. They're never going to go on to the next level. So at some level, that's where the transfer portal.
It's going to. I mean, if you look at the caliber of players Oregon State's brought in this class, with how many former, Tyge Hill, Westlaw, Clemens, all these former 4-star and very talented kids, it will be beneficial in a way. But it also come back and bite Oregon State in the butt, because you've got the guys, Jack Velling and Silas, Achille. These guys.
So that's another thing I asked. I asked both Brian Gunderson and Keith Hayward that about. Okay, so do you find yourself? Do you think you're going to be more of a portal heavy recruiting guys that maybe are sitting or do you think you'll still go for the development route? And he said, well, I think they both said that the portal has made it so there's so many under-recruited preps, guys getting totally left behind.
I mean, if you look at,
so the plan then would be to bring those guys in, but also have such a great culture, be able to take care of them fairly with NIL and work to keep them, we wouldn't have seen the exodus we saw at Oregon State this year, even with NIL, had the coaching change hadn't happened.
I mean, if you look at 3 of the players that left Oregon State left for Michigan State. Yeah. Childs, Velling, and Tanner Miller. And they were trying to get more than that as well. I know for a fact there's players on a team, multiple, that Smith was trying to get.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I feel it's broken, but
I think the NCAA should have stepped in 3 or 4 years ago and regulated the transfer portal, and then 2 or 3 years ago regulated NIL and controlled it. Because I mean, even extending into basketball,
basketball's always been a mess, though.
You have Oregon paying a freshman in college, a guy who's never even played. Granted, it's working out. $750,000.
Yeah.
Unreal.
I've heard of Oregon, and I don't know. I mean, this is coming second or third hand, but the 2 transfer quarterbacks they have invested over $4 million on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Reese or Beav always brings some different questions. 1, most exciting or memorable OSU sporting event you have attended besides the 98 Civil War? His was the 2017 baseball game in Omaha, sitting next to Dan Vandry and beating LSU 13-1. But let's hear yours. You weren't even alive for 98 Civil War.
No, I wasn't even close. I wasn't even alive for the Fiesta Bowl either. In terms of game I watched in person,
yes,
for me, I kind of have a two-way tie. I have the 2008 game against SC, where Jaquiz Rogers ran all over the Trojans, and then the Civil War last year, or in 2022, my dad got me sideline passes for my 18th birthday, but because of COVID, it got pushed back to the 2022 game. And just being on the sideline.
You were on the sideline for that one?
Yeah, and seeing the energy, the way how dead the sideline was when it was 31-10 or whatever it was, and then just seeing that slowly pick back up was it's something I will never forget. And it being against Oregon too just made it so much sweeter.
I mean, obviously 98 Civil War is my all-time favorite memory as a Beaver. I will say that, so I'm going to go back though, because I think it was 96 Stanford. I think it was homecoming against Stanford, and Oregon State won that game. It was 95 or 96. That was a really fun one to be at. The goalpost came down. It got paraded into the quad. That was a super fun one, and I was a student for that one. I think, well, the Fiesta Bowl was actually super fun too, but that Civil War was amazing. The comeback, that's one that will go down, I think, as a memory. Okay, dream spot to retire. Hopefully sooner rather than later in your career. Yes, I just turned 49. That's been a little rough on me. 49 is tough. Don't worry, I'm not ready to leave Beaver Blitz yet. I don't know. I've actually thought about, I haven't thought about retirement, but I've thought about where I want to be eventually. I don't know, someplace sunny. I need to be someplace warm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I love Palm Springs. Too expensive, I think, for me to retire there. But I say that, but I love the Pacific Northwest in the summer. So,
yeah.
And my family's here, so but I need to be someplace sunny. So maybe I don't retire. Maybe this is my thing. I don't think I would never just retire and do nothing. I will have Beaver Blitz. So you guys will be seeing me when I'm like an old lady. But I think I want to just maybe have a house here and then just travel different spots, spend a month in Mexico, maybe a month in Hawaii, a month in Europe. I don't know. That would be ultimate goal. Favorite coach to interview since you've been covering Oregon State sports? Okay. You haven't covered long, but what's your favorite interview?
Well, really out of the ones back, and probably Trent. He's just pretty efficient. Like, he just gets to the point.
I didn't know what to expect with him, like being head coach, but he's done great.
Yeah.
Having him on yesterday, he doesn't dilly-dally or make long drawn out. Yeah. He just says it.
Trent's very straight up and fast and efficient, gets to the point quickly. I don't think I've been around long enough because, most of the coaches I've talked to are gone now. So
yeah. So Dennis Erickson, I was not interviewing then. So he was around when I worked at Oregon State as a fundraiser. I love that man. He is just to talk to him. I had a couple chances over the years to sit after a golf tournament with him and RD and a couple guys and have a beer and just hear the stories. The stories that he could come up with were the best ever. So Dennis Erickson, hands down, probably is one of my most favorite Oregon State coaches that I've just got to hang out with. I also love Mike Riley. And I think I've appreciated him more since he left or since Oregon State's had some different coaches. I think back to when I took over Beaver Blitz and he was coach. And I guess I took it for granted how open he was. Practices were wide open. We were allowed to walk between the two fields. He would always make a point to come over and say, hi, how are your kids? Invite the kids to, come to practice. I took that for granted because then when he was gone, nobody does that kind of thing. Gary Anderson didn't do that. Jonathan Smith doesn't do that. And now that I saw Coach Riley this year when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, and to be able to see him, just the genuineness that he is who he is. I just so appreciate that. Another one that I have never interviewed, but was just a gem to be around, was Paul Valenti. And he was in the athletic department when I worked there. And again, stories, and being able to spend some time with Coach Valenti and hear some of his stories. As far as interview, I don't know.
Well, I've got one for you.
Okay, you got one?
Which new coach are you most looking forward to interviewing?
Gosh, I can't wait to talk to Thomas Ford because I've not met him, and Brandon Huffman just raved about him. So I'm excited to talk to him. Oh, Michael Petrie was a good interview. I enjoyed talking with him. So yeah, I'm excited to hear him, and also Kyle DeVan. I haven't talked to him, since he's been a coach. So I heard his interview with Mike Parker and John Warren the other day, and it was good. I've never really spoken to John Boyer. I don't know if he doesn't strike me as like an exciting interview. I think I'm going to go Thomas Ford.
Yeah.
I've had the, great pleasure of being able to interview Coach Hayward or Coach Gunderson before and Coach Bray. Like I said, Trent's fun though. Trent, not fun, but I don't know if I'd say fun, but yeah, like I said, he's a good interview because I feel like we walk away like, okay, learn something. Oh, Coach Cav was always a good one too. Never knew what Coach Cab might say, but it was always good. William, 1974, said, have we adequately replaced both lines so that we do not drop off?
I mean, defensive line, too early to tell. We haven't seen any of these guys play in games yet, and we've seen them limited in practice. I will say, if Takari Hickles' camp pass rushing skills carry over to games, then the pass rush could be really good. And then offensive line, I think the offensive line is going to be sneakily good with Josh Gray back at a guard spot is huge. Van Wells at center, Grant Stark at guard. I think your interior is pretty solidified. And then, you got a handful of guys, Jacob Strand, Tyler Morano, and then Tank Christian Lichtenhan. All three of those guys can compete at the tackle spot. I think it'll be good. It'll be hard for it to live up to last year's simply because they don't have a top 10 draft pick on the offensive line. But I think it'll be a very solid offensive line.
Oh, I have another coach that was fun to interview, Brent Brennan. He's a good one.
Oh, really? Brennan. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Dallin Dye says, based on what you've heard, what college offense would you compare to what Gundy is trying to do? UCLA, San Jose State, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Michigan. Any?
I feel like it's going to be unique. I think it's going to be a mixture. I think you'll see I think it'll be a mixture of the San Jose State and UCLA offense, more of the San Jose State, but with some of the, Chip Kelly, the Chip Kelly effect sprinkled in there as well, which is something that I would welcome. I would definitely welcome that. Yeah,
it's going to be some zone blocking. It's going to be some multiple sets. It's going to be different, Beaver fans. But what Gundy said, what Coach Gunderson said is they want to score a lot of points, and so they want to be efficient and they want to score points. So I don't see as a fan how you can't be excited about that. Anything else, Jake, before I let you go?
No.
Awesome. Okay, well, make sure you stick with Beaver Blitz. Jake and I are breaking down the roster, not only the top 25 players from last season, but Jake's going to start looking at kind of introducing kind of what these position groups are going to look like heading into spring camp, which kicks off early March. And then, like I said, baseball starts up. So lots of discussion, lots of great things going on at Beaver Blitz. So make sure you check it out. We'll be back probably, what do you say? Give us through Texas so we have something to talk about baseball-wise.
Probably 2.5, 3 weeks.
2.5 weeks. So we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk some of that and preview some spring camp, because then we'll be back weekly again for at least a couple weeks through that first couple spring camps. We should have lots to talk about. Until then, he's Jake Hedberg. I'm Angie Machado. Follow us on Twitter and follow us at Beaver Blitz. We'll be back next time for another episode of the Damn Podcast.